Hello and welcome to the Keyboard Chronicles, a podcast for keyboard players of the gigging variety. I'm your host, David Holloway, and it's great as always to be here with you. And I'm pretty pumped also to have Paul Bindig back in the chair after a few hectic weeks. How's things, Paul?
Things are great, and I missed you, David. It's been sad, and I don't like giving a sucker an even break either. So I'm back to make sure no one comes and steals my seat on the Keyboard Chronicles podcast, which I love.
No risk of that. We couldn't do it without you. So, but no, that's great. Okay, what's that? Okay, can't give a sucker an even break. I've never heard that.
Never give a sucker an even break.
I like that. That's going to be a part of my new life philosophy. Great to have us both back, and we've got another good guest this week. So this episode, we're talking to Martin Rebelski. Now, Martin has a well-established career as the artist Robelski, doing his own solo work, which is well and truly worth a check out, and we'll link to that in the show notes. But he's also a pivotal contributor to Dubs, a very well-known UK-based band, as touring keyboard player, and also has some fairly regular work with Peter Hook and the Light. So those that are New Order fans will well and truly know Peter Hook and his amazing bass player and his own band. And also the iconic new wave band Echo and the Bunnymen, who are still going very, very strong and releasing new work, let alone their great songs from the 80s and 90s. So you have someone overall that has some great thoughts on the gigging life, and we'll think you enjoy this one a great deal. Martin, thank you for joining us on this sunny Monday in the UK. How are you going?
Hey, good, thank you. Yeah, it's a beautiful sunny day here in Manchester, rarely. Nice to meet you, though, David and Paul.
No, great to have you here. So, we're really excited to talk to you about a bunch of things, but I thought we'd kick off just with the usual question tell us about Martin Rebelski and his early entry into music. What sort of got you into music in the first place?
Wow, yeah, music. I wasn't brought up in a particularly musical family. But my grandfather, he's a piano player, so he was the main link really, and he was in it was before I was born, but he was in a big band and he used to do all that sort of stuff. But that was the only sort of link I had, and he had a big Hammond organ in his front room, and so when I was a kid, I used to go around and see him play that, the double manual and the pedals and everything, and I was just fascinated by the technicalities of it all, really. And so that was it. There's nobody else that was sort of remotely interested in music in my family apart from that. And I think he sort of, I can't quite recall, but if it was me saying, I want to get into it, or if it was him urging me, but he bought me this little mini keyed sort of synth, if you can call it a synth, but Yamaha Portasound. Is it Portasound or Portatone?
They were Portasounds. No, I think they might have had Portatones as well, but Portasounds were huge. Yeah,
yeah, that was my first keyboard too, Martin.
Was it with the mini key?
Yeah, with the tiny keys and the little inbuilt speakers. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
inbuilt speakers, the brown, sort of horrific brown carry case, Bon Tempi sort of drum thing on the left. Yeah, but it was great, and so I can't recall quite whether I wanted it or he just sort of surprised me on a birthday with it, and so I got into it, and I was probably, I don't know, 9 or 10, and he was like, I'll teach you the correct way to do it, and all these scales and everything like that, and just like any sort of impatient child, petulant child, in which I was as well, I'll hold my hand up, I was like, yeah, kind of learn this song out of the charts. You're like, well, you need to learn your scales first. And within a few months, I was just like, no, I'm not interested, and just completely bored of it. And he was frustrated with me, and I was frustrated with him, and that was it. And I just put it down for years, actually. So, and that was it, just gathering dust in the corner of my room. And it was probably 3 or 4 years later, when I was into skateboarding or whatever fad I was into at the time, with my friend, and my close friend Mark, we were just, with our skateboards walking around my neighborhood, and we, in an open window, we heard somebody drumming, and I think it was my first experience of ever hearing anybody playing live drums. And he was playing, what was it? Like the Amen break, you know, so a really cool break. And we were just stood there sort of transfixed with it all. And it's sort of something you'd never do as an adult, but as a kid, we knocked on the door. We must know more about this and what's going on. And yeah, it was somebody we knew from school, actually. And he invited us in, and we just sat there and listened to him play for a bit, playing like Beatles tracks and all these sort of things. And we were like, wow, let's start a band. And I was like, oh, I could play keyboard. You know, I haven't learned for sort of a couple of weeks. There's a few scales. And my friend was like, oh, I could play guitar. And he's probably equally as bad as I was. And then I went home that night and I thought, well, I better learn how to play the keyboard, better I? Dug out this old little Portasound keyboard. Yeah, and that was it, really. That got me into it.
And so that was your first sort of teenage band, and then how did you progress from that to ending up, you know, doing it for a living?
Whew, how long have you got?
Plenty of time.
Well, I mean, that was funny because it was all really natural and organic after that. I mean, that was the beauty of it, because, you know, when anything to do with music, I think if somebody's trying to say, you know, you must do this, you must learn this scale, or anything in life, you're reluctant to go down that path. That you want to find your own path. There's got to be fun. First and foremost, got to be fun, hasn't it? Hence the Spider-Man picture behind me. But yeah, that was sort of a moment of realization that, oh wow, this is fun, and we're friends here, and wouldn't it be fun to learn those parts and start a band? And with that little Portasound keyboard, or Portatone, or whatever it was, yeah, I loved it. I really got my head around it, and I started listening to tracks on the radio then, and just picking things up by ear, just like really simple melodies, and realized that I had sort of an affinity for it, and I could pick it up quicker than what I expected. And yeah, I had that keyboard for years and years and years. And it's funny because you say you had that keyboard as your first one, Paul.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, and it was the same as kind of my entree into. I mean, I was only a kid, but I had it for a long time, and just being able to get different sounds out of it made it fun, as you say. So I'm wondering if that was kind of your experience too, and what made you want to dive into it more, and perhaps then take things on a more serious level.
Well, yeah, it's funny because that keyboard, I really got into it after that, and I started working in a music shop demonstrating pianos, and they had little synths in there. It was mainly little Casios that had inbuilt speakers and real cheap, sort of basically toys, sort of things you'd get in Radio Shack or something like that. And but they had full-size keys, and I was getting to play on those every weekend on real pianos, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. But it put me in good stead to learn on that mini keys Yamaha, because I was never fussy then about keyboard beds or things. You know, you can get a lot of keyboard players now, oh, I'm not playing that hasn't got this particular action on it or whatever. And I was like, well, after that Portasound, I'll play anything. And yeah, but when working in that music shop, you'd see other synths come in, and occasionally they'd have secondhand synths, and they're like Casio CZs, like the proper synths, but they were out of date by that time. They were sort of secondhand. But I was fascinated that I was at pure synthesis though, and so going from a little Portatone to actually something that's got saw waves on it and filters. I was like, wow, okay, this is what I want to do. Really interested in all this sort of stuff and all the technology side of it. And I quickly outgrew the Yamaha, and I wanted a big synth. I wanted, you know, all DX7s and things like that were out, and so I want one of those. But my dad was like, well, they're expensive, all those synths, you know. You're going to have to sort of put something towards it, pay half of it, prove that you want to do it. And it's not just a fad thing like you're skateboarding or whatever. And if you contribute half, because you've got a job as well, I had a little weekend job and I had a paper round and all these sort of things. You contribute half, he'll contribute the other half. And so I was like, okay, great. This for about £100. There was a full-size Casio keyboard with speakers on it. It's still like a toy essentially, but I was like, okay, great. I'll get one of those then. But then, of course, by the time I wasn't earning that much money, so by the time I could afford to pay for half of that, I'd already sort of outgrew it, and I was like, I'm not sure I want that. I want this one. I want this one. And so years went by, and I saw the Korg M1 and things like that, and I was like, which were really expensive since. But I was like, oh my god, I really want a Korg M1. And then I heard about the W30 Roland. Don't know if you remember that. But
I had one of those too. Would you believe? I had one of those.
Wow.
With the disc drive. With the you had to boot the 3.5-inch floppy discs, and and you were about to say the Prodigy used it. Yeah.
Painful, that floppy disk drive, wasn't it? Because it was.
Wasn't it?
The first thing you turned it on, it's like, right, install the floppy disk for the operating system. So then you're waiting a minute for the operating system to just boot up, which is if you're in a live setting in a gig and there's a power cut or something like that. It's like, oh dear, which happened. But yeah, what a great keyboard that was. But that was really expensive. And it took me years to get anywhere near as, probably 3 or 4 years really, to get a few £100 together. And my dad could see I was serious. So he was like, okay, look, I'll put the rest of it. I can see you're serious. And I really did cherish that. It was good parenting actually, because I mean, at the time I was just like, oh, just get at me. But yeah, looking back, it made me it was a valuable life lesson really.
Absolutely. And so, I'm assuming, Martin, it wasn't as simple as you're working in a music store and some other band came in and you kicked off your career as a successful touring and original musician.
No, that would be great. That would be the dream, wouldn't it? Just playing some Debussy in the piano shop and like, hey, come on the road with me. No, if only. No, I went to music college in Manchester, which is where I am now. University here. There was this is going back quite a while now, but it's a music and music technology course. It was equal things, so I thought I'd sort of hedge my bets really. So because I was always interested in electronics and technology, and I thought, well, if music's my main passion, and if that doesn't work out, maybe I could be a sound engineer or producer or something like that, or some kind of technician, and at least I'll hedge my bets. I'll have a backup plan. And so that's what I went to study both. But my main passion was playing, performing, really. So I went down that road, which is good. More of a case of just because I was living in a small town, grew up in a small town, where you're sort of a big fish in a small town. You're in every band, and you think, you're the bee's knees. And then you move to a big city, which is what enabled me to do when I went to university. And you realize, no, actually, there's incredible musicians here, phenomenal. And you're actually just a small fish in a big pond, So
great. And so, music college can be a great, sort of a bigger pond for musicians to mix. So is that where you started to sort of gather some contacts and networks and work out how you would like to progress your music career?
Yeah, it was. And pretty much straight away, like the first day I got there, I was like, let's start a band. I still had that mentality of, I want to meet people. I want to get in a band straight away and let's make the most of this. And so I started a band straight away, sort of first week, I think I got there. And I was in probably too many bands really at the time. And we, one night we could play rock music, another night jazz and soul, another night, whatever, just anything to get some money in, really.
At that time, Martin, did you have a particular favourite style of music, or were you very open-minded to it, or what was your preference to play?
Preference then was I was going through a stage of, I was only a teenager, 18, 19. So I was going through that phase of, I think what we all go through is of self-indulgence, really. and just being as technical as it possibly could be. And so I guess I was into jazz and that sort of thing, really. And not that has to be self-indulgent, but that was just the path I was going down at the time. And so some nights I'd be playing like in a jazz trio or something like that. And, just for a meal, really, and £20, £50 or something, just making ends meet, really. But yeah, I enjoyed it at the time. But I mean, there does come a stage where you play those sort of gigs and it can be ridiculously self-indulgent. You can look around the room. I remember there's one moment where I was looking at, I'd get a call from random people. Oh, can you just turn up here tonight? If you're free, would I just turn up with my keyboard and just be some random gig with people you never met before. And one of these gigs, I looked at the guitarist and he was just, musically masturbating, should we call it, and playing with his teeth and just really indulging himself. And I just sort of had this epiphany. I just thought, what the hell am I doing here? Because I looked at the crowd and there's about 10 people in the crowd. Nobody's paying any attention at all. And it was just, I thought this isn't for me, really. I can indulge my own sort of ego, massage my own ego at home if I want in my privacy at my own home. But yeah, it's not. These people aren't here to listen to this. And yeah, it was just about that moment actually where I did get a call, because I suppose I'd got a bit of a reputation for playing around town and being a bit of not a session musician, but just playing, because I wasn't at that level yet of where I was playing for professional bands. I was just playing all around for everybody. And one of my housemates at the time, because we lived in a big house, there's about 6 of us in the house. One of the guys that was living in the house worked for the Hacienda, the nightclub in Manchester, which was owned by New Order at the time. And he also worked at Rob's Records, which is sort of their affiliate record label. And they were always needing musicians to do things. And a band called Doves were in the studio at the time recording the first album. And they needed somebody to play pianos on one of their tracks. And he recommended me. And so I got a call for that. It was just really natural and organic, which is great. And it was just the sort of call I needed, really, because I was just getting a bit tired of doing all these gigs where, I didn't, one day I'd be playing jazz, one day I'd be playing rock, and next I'd be playing Irish music or something like that. And I wish I could do something that's solid and one project. And at the time, Doves wasn't that. It was just, can you just do this session in the studio for this one song? And I went down and met the guys, and they'd had sort of a fair chunk of the first album done already. And I loved it. I thought it was great. And yeah, we just got on and we played piano on this one track called Here It Comes. And that was it, really. And then a few months later, I got another call from them saying, hey, we're going on the road. Do you want to come on tour with us? And so I was like, wow, great. Perfect. And then, the next thing, it all blew up, really, for Dove. So it was a world tour. Australia was the first place we came, actually.
Oh, really? There you go. So you've seen a bit of the country then? Yeah. Yeah, fortunately. From quite a young age as well, because I've not really travelled too much at that point in my life.
This would have been early 2000s, Martin? Yep.
I think, it was like 99, 2000.
Yep.
That was when we were recording and just sort of the first initial tours were going on. And it was, I think we played Metro, those kind of size venues, quite good venues, And I'd always wanted to go to Australia, so that was incredible to go. The first time you go there, you're playing and performing there. It's amazing.
Good way to do it. So how did you find going from, you're playing a session with these guys and, playing a track on an album, and then all of a sudden, as to use your words, things just blew up, and all of a sudden you're doing a world tour. How did you find that transition for yourself? Was it just exciting and fun, or were there some unexpected elements to it? How did you cope with that yourself?
It's just really exciting. It's one of those things where, when I had that revelation to start a band when I was sort of 14, and I heard that drummer. And then when you go out from that, and the next day you're like, oh, we want to be on top of the pops, and we're going to do a world tour and all these things, and it's the flights of fancy of somebody in their youth going, oh wow, wouldn't it be great to do all this and all that sort of stuff. And so
course, yeah.
it was quite amazing, really, that had happened. And so when I was in that moment, and I still am, I still do feel that a lot of gratitude that, wow, they were my dreams when I was that age. And I got to fulfill them to a certain degree. It's something I could have never expected, really. That I just, you hope those things will come to fruition. But yeah, when you're on a plane going to Australia, playing at Metro, or it's like, wow, okay, this is actually happening now.
Yeah, hell of a buzz. And so, Martin, I mean, with Doves, you're sort of the unofficial fourth member, as quite often said, and I know you've done further sessions with them since. I know there was a bit of a hiatus there, but there was another album. I think you were involved in the last album there a couple of years back.
Yeah, I've been involved in. I mean, it's actually probably the first album, which might be, if I'm honest, probably my favourite one of theirs, Lost Souls, is that's the one I'm involved in least, really, because it was just at the tail end when I met them. But I've been involved in all their albums. It's just sort of everything they do that they need keyboards on, really. Piano, keyboards, and I mean, they're great producers, three of them, credible. I mean, we've been very lucky to work with just unbelievable producers, really. Because when you get a record deal and you've got a certain amount of heat and attention from media, then the record company suddenly go, oh, okay, wow, let's put you together with this producer and this producer and this producer. So it was all the top producers in the world, really, that they were throwing their names at us and we were working with. And even since those early days, I could see that Jimmy, Andy, and Jess, all three of them, they're very technical and creative, production-wise, not just as musicians. They really know how to make a record on their own. They don't need a producer. I don't think they ever have done. And I learned so much from them, from working with them, not just on a musical level, but also technical in recording, producing. And so the last album, Universal One, is produced by them. And I was like, finally, wow, they've produced it themselves, good.
Yeah, no, they certainly continue to go from strength to strength. And I assume that there's still some future life in Doves, I'm guessing?
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I mean, we're all like brothers, really. We're just so close. We've been working together for, almost 25 years now. I mean, those three have been working together longer, but we're like family, really. So we're constantly in communication, and it's unfortunately there's another bit of a hiatus at the moment, but hopefully one day it will see the light of day for us being on the road again.
Great stuff. And then obviously, Martin, you mentioned the Hacienda and owned by New Order. So I'll make another probably wrong guess. Is that how the connection with Peter Hook came about?
No, it wasn't actually.
There you go.
Because it's a bit before my time at Hacienda, I have to say. I was in Manchester when it was still open, but it was the tail end of it. It wasn't its heady days, really. But of course, it was a ubiquitous name, isn't it, all around the world, the Hacienda. And I was aware of Pete Hook, and I think I met him briefly. With Doves, we'd supported New Order, and I briefly met him, Peter. And it was sort of, I think we'd just that kind of shuffle along when you support bands and you kind of go into the dressing room like, oh, hi, thanks for letting us support you, whatever, and everybody sort of grunts at you. It was one of those. And that was the only sort of instance of meeting him I had really, and it was in the Doves hiatus a few years back. I was having a walk actually in the hills with Jez, the guitarist from Doves. There was no phone signal, and which is lovely to have, really, isn't it? That escapism. But when I think I just had a bit of free time as well, because there was the Doves hiatus. So we were just chatting about what we were doing, what we were up to. And by the time I'd got back down from the hill, turned my phone on, I got a message just saying, "Hey, do you want to join Peter Hook's band?" So just out of the blue, really. And I think, I'm not sure exactly where it came from. I think it was a few things, really. How these things normally work is just the people you know, isn't it, really? And Cromie, who's a sort of well-known road tech in Manchester, he's worked for everybody from Stone Roses to Prince. And he was Dove's long-time tech. And I think he was working with Peter at the time, and he put my name in the ring. And I did know the drummer vaguely as well, Paul. So yeah, it was just right, do you want to come on the road with us? We're on tour on Thursday, if you're free. And so I was like, yeah, great. And I've been with them for 5 years now.
That's amazing. And that's quite a varied sort of level of solid ground you're covering there between Doves and Peter Hook. And we also got to talk about Echo and the Bunnymen at the moment. It sounds like you've had a few learning curves there. And I mean, even just talking then on Thursday, what sort of process was it to get your head around the content before you kicked off the tour?
Yeah, well, that's a funny thing that with any musician that starts a new project, or especially if you're sort of an additional member, whereas all the rest of the band have been on tour for years, and then it's just you're that final piece of the puzzle. Everybody's always up to speed, aren't they? And always seems to be the keyboard player for some reason. But you just have to turn your phone off, turn everything off, and just listen to music just for hours and hours and hours. More so than I think than trying to learn it. Just get it in your head and just listen to those tunes. That's the way it seems to work for me, anyway. But it was. Fortunately, with that first Peter Hook gig, it was a festival, and we weren't headlining. So it was James actually were headlining them. Don't know if you know the band James. And so we had a sound check, so I didn't have any rehearsal either. And the rest of the band are really lovely, and they were like, "Okay, we'll put as many sort of Joy Division type of tracks in that we can without much keyboard to sort of give you a bit of time to learn it." And we did have a sound check luckily for that one. But it's funny because Tim Booth, who's the singer for James, he was going to come up on stage and play and sing Lovell Terrace Park with us. And so he got on stage with us all. This is my first time getting on stage with the rest of the band as well. And so out of everybody, Tim turns around to me and goes, "Right, this is the first time I've played this track, sung it. Can you cue me in for when the vocals start?" Just assuming that I'm like the musical director. I was just like, well, this is the first time I've played it as well. So that was a good introduction. But that was the first time I met Peter Hook since when I briefly met him and when we were supporting New Order that time. Just on stage there, and it was a big crowd as well. It was like, I don't know, 10,000 people or something.
Yeah, that's sort of a gig you're not going to forget in a hurry. Particularly that must be strange. I mean, I understand as side people that we don't often get to meet the artist prior to a gig, but that's still going to be a little bit challenging.
Yeah, it was really, because I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I didn't know them, but on a personal level, let alone professional level, he was just like, "Oh, hi, nice to meet you. Right, let's get on and do this gig." Which is an experience, yeah, for sure.
It's a great vote of confidence in your ability, though. The fact that they were very comfortable to have you there and confidently assumed you'd be fine, and obviously you were. So,
well, yeah,
take it as a compliment, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a leap of faith for them, wasn't it? So yeah, I was very grateful for that opportunity, obviously, and like I say, they're quite simple. The tunes that were in the set, so and it wasn't like a 2-hour set or anything. It was sort of 45 minutes, an hour, or something like that. So it wasn't too bad, and I'd had a few days, and I'd got my head around those tracks by that point, so it was okay.
And that's an ongoing engagement. I mean, I know nothing's ever ongoing and permanent, but is that something that you're hoping to continue to work with Peter?
Yeah, for sure. I've got a great relationship with Peter.
Great.
Great deal of admiration and respect for him. And you realise what people have, that sort of respect for him and reverence, really, when you travel around the world with him, which I've been fortunate to do for the last few years. That people just treat him like a god, they get very nervous around him, and it's testament to his musicianship, really, and what a lovely person he is.
Yeah, exactly.
What a legacy of great music he's given us all, really. So for 40 years,
absolutely. And I mean, speaking of legacy of great music and an iconic sort of front person, how did the Echo and the Bunnymen gig come about? Is that a more recent one that's popped up for you?
Yeah, that's a more recent one. So it was the sort of tail end of last year, where around the COVID sort of time. And this is when actually Doves, we were supposed to be doing a tour in February, the UK tour. But I got a call from the management of Echo and the Bunnymen, just saying, "Oh, hey, we just seen your availability." Because their keyboard player was thinking about leaving. In lockdown, a lot of people had these moments of like, oh, is this what I want to do? Music industry. And it's a tough place to be in the music industry, which a lot of people found out to be. I mean, it's difficult just to make any kind of living out of the music industry nowadays, as you guys well know, especially with Spotify and everything like that. And it's tough out there. And I'm not saying that's his reasoning for moving on, but whatever his reason was, they gave me a call. And I was, I'm on tour with Dubs in February, so can't do it. But it's nice to get the call. Thanks ever so much. And these things have a strange way of working themselves out, don't they? For whatever reason, that the Doves tour got postponed and then cancelled. And I was just thinking to myself, I'd gone for a run, and I was just thinking, oh, that's strange. I could have actually done that tour now. And I got home and I got a call from that management company again going, oh, we know you're free now. Do you fancy doing that tour in February? And I was like, wow, okay. I think so. Tell me more about it. And they were like, right, okay, well, it's in 3 days' time.
There's a pattern here. There's a
pattern. I was like, wow, am I that go-to guy that people come to when they've only got things at short notice?
If you need something done in 3 days, go to Martin.
Yeah, and it was, so my anxiety was going through the roof at that point. And because if it would have been initially when it was the end of last year, I've had months to learn it all, you see. And that was like, oh, wow, that'd be great, But when it's 3 days, it's like, oh my God, wow, I've got to learn all these tracks. And
there's a bit more complexity there too, isn't there, Mark, with Echo and the Bunnymen back catalogue? There's quite a bit of variety in there.
Well, yeah, not only is there variety, it's very much a player's gig, really. Because with Doves and Peter Hook, there's a lot of samples that I'm triggering, and sort of simple things. And I mean, for Doves in particular, is sometimes like I'll have 88 notes samples to play, and I won't even be playing a single familiar keyboard line. I'll be just triggering loads of different things, and people just assume I'm playing piano or something. But I'm like on Kingdom of Rust, for instance. There's an orchestral part, and it's really integral to the piece. And we didn't want to put it on a backing track. And Andy, the drummer, he hates playing to a backing track or a click or anything. Like, wants it all free, which is great, because it makes it, we can speed it up, slow it down, and do different things with it. But so in order to do that, I had to sample the whole orchestra. So it's on my 88 note weighted keyboard. Every single note on that keyboard is a different orchestral sample, which I'm just going through and have to learn. Oh, that C sharp isn't a C sharp. It will play this sort of portamento riff, and it's just which is fun in itself as well. But with Echo and the Bunnymen, it is very much, you know, playing piano and strings and organ, and so it's fun. It's kind of going back to my roots, really, of just playing in a band. And
yeah, very fulfilling, I imagine, being able to do that. And with all the variety, and, you know, talking about going to your roots, where you were playing anything and everything, and obviously your professional career has been really diverse as well. I'm really interested in your solo work with, you know, the Rebelski, which it's like a dance, trance, electronica sort of a sound. So I'm interested in what drew you to that, and yeah, what informed that part of your journey.
Well, yeah. Thanks for asking, Paul. I was because being keyboard players, which you are, when I was first getting into, if I can tell you a bit of the history about it, is into playing. If you're a guitarist, for instance, you've got Jimmy Page or Jimi Hendrix, Eddie Van Halen, all these cool people to learn how to be technical. When you're a keyboard player, it's like Richard Clayderman, you know, just all these. There's nobody. There really isn't anybody.
You only had to mention Liberace, Martin. You would have talked about Richard Clayderman. That's classic.
Exactly. So it's like, well, I don't want to play like Richard Clayderman, thanks. So who have I got? So then you start exploring other avenues, and electronic music really is the one that sort of immediately comes in. And when I heard Kraftwerk, I was like, wow, okay, I want to play like Kraftwerk and learn how to program and do all these sort of things and get all these sounds. And so I was really into electronic music from an early age, from all that. And then when I formed that band when I was about 14, I got into house music, like 90s house music, like Italian house, and just really simple piano house music. And yeah, it's just it stuck with me ever since, really. Resonated, that kind of music, because it's not too it's just fun to play, really energetic, and quite instant, and you can pick it up very quickly. And yeah, I mean, as my sort of taste progressed, you know, I got into things like Aphex Twin and Porta Canada, but yeah, the early days it was just very simple electronica, really.
So, I mean, I think you've actually identified a future creative project using a Yamaha Portasound to do a Richard Clayderman cover. I think
God, imagine. Wow. I couldn't name a track of his, could you?
No. Oh, probably Claire de Lune or something like that. It'd be something like that. So speaking of diverse playing and rigs, I can imagine with all these artists you're playing with, do you have some go-to keyboards? And I'm obviously loving, you know, I'm thinking it's whirly in the background, and I'm not sure what the other large keyboard is behind you. I'm fascinated. It looks like it's an older analog as well.
Yeah, Juno 60.
Oh, yeah, there you go, Juno 60. So,
yeah.
But what are your go-to keyboards? Do they vary between each of those artists you work with, or you've got some fairly standard items?
Well, yeah, this is maybe controversial for you, but yeah, I tend to not use any of the original sort of bits of kit live, and yeah, I use that in the studio.
That's controversial. I think that's sensible.
Yeah, well, this is
agreed.
Because people can go, oh right, why aren't you using the original sort of Prophet or the original Mini Moog and all this on the things? And it's like, well, because they go out of tune, and you know, if they get dropped on tour, they're heavy for one thing, and all these sorts of things. Or who's going to take a Hammond V3 with them on tour? The Rolling Stones. You know, if you've got the Rolling Stones budget, then yes, of course, you're going to do that. But otherwise, you've got to be practical. And with the way computers are now, and VSTs, you can just recreate anything you want. And I'll defy anybody to tell the difference, really, just using their ears, that is.
That's right. And so you are tending to use things like, I don't know whether it's main stage or gig performer, you tended to use a software-based system?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So from quite early days of Doves, really, because we, I mean, I know you were thinking about asking me about musical mishaps, but there's plenty of music mishaps because of technology. And so it was mainly using older equipment, really, hardware that would go down rather than the software. And so it forced us to move to software. And as soon as we did, it's been pretty good, really, I have to say. Using Mainstage, I love it. So
any go-to soft synths or plugins that you use that, you'd be lost without?
Oh, yeah, so many. I mean, all the Arturia stuff's great. Just everything they do is really good. Spectrasonics, the Keyscape, brilliant, really good. Talking about, you don't need to take a word that's around until when you got that. They're just so good. Because, if I took that, I mean, I'd be really worried about that as well, because it's got sentimental value and everything. But if it, they don't go out of tune, obviously. And if this goes out of tune, you have to get a soldering iron out. So people haven't got, your road crew is going to look at you like, what? I'm not getting a soldering iron out mid-gig to tune that for you.
So with all this diversity, and as David said, just the different artists you've worked with, and and your own solo stuff as well, is there anything that's stuck with you that's a lesson that you'd pass on to other people aspiring to, I don't know, get into touring, get into playing live, to make a success of it? What have you picked up that would be a valuable lesson for other keys players?
Yeah, that's a nice philosophical question there. Many things, really. I mean, number one, don't let your ego get in the way.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it's good to go through those stages of being really technical, and because everybody's got to learn and get up to a certain standard, obviously. But then in a band setting, especially if it's a rock band, you suddenly start freeform doing a jazz solo. Everybody just, the drummer throws a drumstick at you, stop it. And I quickly learned that with Doves, actually. It was great, sort of, because I'd been coming from these jazz gigs, then I'd turn up and I'd go on a Doves tour, and it was anything I'd slightly start noodling with, I'd just get a drumstick thrown at me, like, oh, stop it, you. And it's good grounding, really, because it can be self-indulgent. It's got to be in the appropriate setting for all those sorts of things. And when you record yourself and you hear yourself back, especially in a rock environment, because it's not about you, you're for a lot of, especially the early Doves tracks, it'd be sort of like padding and soft pads as the beds behind. And it's one of those things where, as if, like, people would sort of say, oh, I didn't even hear anything you played. But if you don't play, then people, oh, right, wow, I'll really notice this massive chasm where you'd stop playing. And so you just have to get your ego in check and things like that.
That's actually it's a great point.
Yeah, serving the song, I suppose. And
serving the song, and your fellow musicians as well. It's not about you. It's like being in a football team or something. It's not about the striker. They get the headlines, the striker, don't they? Like the singer does get the headlines. But the keyboard players, like the defender, just holding the team together and passing the ball around. And
someone's got to play left back and make sure that no goals get scored. It's a very important position.
Yeah.
But sometimes those goals do get scored, and you've alluded to it already, Martin. Tell us about your best train wreck. Where haven't you been able to fulfill the duties you would like to?
Oh, dear. Well, it's always technical things, really, about equipment letting you down. I briefly mentioned a Doves thing earlier, but that was hard. That was a band. I can give you a couple, I think. There was, if you'll indulge me, it was our first gig, or might have been our first gig with Doves in New York. And we've been hotly tipped as this sort of great band, and to see, and so just everybody was there. David Bowie was there apparently. So we were like, wow, David Bowie's in the crowd, amazing. And then lo and behold, halfway through the gig, all the gear went down. We were using Akai samplers. So that was before we were using main stage. It didn't even exist at that point. And I think I had a few Akai samplers, and Jez did as well. He was sort of triggering it by his foot pedals, and they all decided to go down the SCSI interfaces and all these sorts of things. We went to go off stage with our head in our hands. Oh God, everybody was there, and it took about half an hour for the crew to sort it out. And that was painful. What else? On a personal level, it was technology again. It was, excuse me, we were playing a festival, and for whatever reason, it was in the UK, we hired all our equipment in. Maybe ours was getting shipped around the world or something. I'm not sure. But anyway, it was the days before I was using in-ear monitors, and so it was using wedges, and it was equipment I didn't know. And we didn't get sound check because it's a festival. So there was a line check, but I wasn't involved in that because it was unfortunately, we had a crew to do that. But we got on stage, and for the first sort of 3 songs, I didn't hear anything. I couldn't hear anything, which can invariably happen, at a festival. I mean, I suppose that's another one for the life lesson, really. Know what to do when things go wrong. In music, that is. But anyway, so the first 3 songs, I didn't hear a note I played at all. And all I could hear was sort of the drums, really. Couldn't hear the vocals or anything. And by the time, we didn't have our own monitor engineer with us either. And by the time I did hear what I was playing, it was just all out of key, completely out of key. And I think it was like Reading Festival as well. It was, a big festival. And I realised it was a hired keyboard, and it was some piano thing, like I don't know what it was. It's some like Clavinova or some Yamaha thing. Can't quite recall, but it'd been transposed. So whoever previously hired it had transposed it, saved it, and it wasn't really obvious. There wasn't a big on keyboards nowadays. There's a big transpose button, probably because it's happened to so many keyboard players. Red lights, transpose up or down, and it was in a box, and you had to go through a menu and find it. All these, so much so that I had to call the tech over, and he got the manual out at the side of the stage, and we were both trying whilst the gig was going on. Yeah, it was painful.
I don't know what's scarier, the fact that you had to live through that on stage, or the fact it took 3 songs before and no one had told you.
I know, this is the thing, isn't it? And it was, and so then when I did finally realise. And I told the tech, and he's looking through the manual. So then I was thinking, okay, well, whilst he's doing that, I'm going to have to just play it by ear, transpose it by ear, until he can figure it out. And the funny thing is about these sort of things, though, is because you're panicking at the time, and I was quite young at the time, so you just, oh my God, and you just panic in your head. And then afterwards, I said to the front of house guy, God, wow, that was awful, wasn't it? Well, train wreck. And he's like, oh, what happened? Not even he knew. So you can blow these things out of all proportion, can't you? If the front of house engineer doesn't even notice, then you're fine, aren't you?
I think that's such a good message for anyone who plays music live. Something goes wrong and you think it's the end of the world, and it very rarely is. And it's amazing how often people don't even notice. So I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's something zen to be able to do it, isn't it? To be able to just go, well, okay, it's happened, but just move on. Because things do happen, it's life, isn't it? And you're not a robot. But I mean, people normally notice mistakes when all the musicians just go, oh, and point to everybody. That's really obvious. But if they don't, then nobody will notice.
Yeah, so true. Particularly,
you can make moments of mistakes as well, though, with bands, and they can be a real. Because when things are too robotic, like I mentioned, that Dove's equipment breakdown, I think. The crowd actually loved it. I mean, we're all panicking, going, oh my God, the gear, are we going to get back on stage? There's all these celebrities in the crowd and everything like that. It's all hyped up to be this amazing gig, and it's just been a train wreck. But then after you have that break and you come back on stage, it's almost like you meant it, because the crowd are willing you on, and it makes it a moment in the set.
Yeah, I've often thought in some ways that there's a couple of benefits to it. Not that you ever want anything to go wrong, but one is it makes the gig memorable for the audience, because it's like they go home and, oh, you wouldn't believe what happened. And the other thing is, if you handle it with grace and aplomb, I believe it's a really, like you said, Martin, the crowd come along with you on the journey, because look, we love these guys and they had a problem and they got through it, and the set was still great. And so I think it can really bond the crowd to you when these unusual things happen.
Yeah, they're generally on your side, unless you're at a festival and they're seeing another band and they're bottling you off. That would be awful, obviously. And you wouldn't want it to happen, but when it does, especially your own gig, they've got your back. They're there for you.
So we have a standard group of questions that we ask all our guests, Martin, and the one you just answered one of them. So thank you, great stories there with the train wrecks. Another one is, if you were to tag another keyboard player, who's a keyboard player, maybe someone you admire, that you would love to see them interviewed on this podcast, so people could learn a bit more about them? Who would that be?
I think a couple. Cory Henry. I mean, he's what a player he.
Oh yeah.
I don't know too much about him, but when I've heard him play, it's wow, it's effortless, very soulful, graceful. I heard him play a solo, and it was on a terrible synth. It was, like a recorder sound on a DX7 or something, and he made that sound incredible. So
yeah, I mean, Paul and I are only talking in recent weeks about Snarky Puppy and Lingus or whatever. Just watching it, he's a freak of nature, that guy. Yeah,
just natural talent.
Yeah, good tag. I like it. And then the dreaded one, Martin, Desert Island Discs, your 5 albums, and I know we did give you a heads up on this one, so I'm not sure how much stress it caused you, but lay them on us.
Yeah, it doesn't cause me any stress really, because those things are really fluid, aren't they? Because if you ask me tomorrow, I'd have a different set of albums. But the one that always really resonates with me is Steve Reich, Music for 18 Musicians. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Good call. Yep.
Amazing. Did you want me to sort of elaborate further, or do you want me to just go through
whatever you would like to do? Yeah, whatever these albums mean to you, go for it.
Yeah, well, with that one, it was just really life. As soon as I heard it, it was one of those life-affirming, wow. And because I am into electronica, I thought it was electronic the first time I heard it. I didn't realize it was actually, people standing in a room playing with that unsequenced. Especially the voices, it sounds synthetic, like a synth playing all these polyrhythms. So that blew my mind. And that's probably, out of all the ones on the list, that's the one that I just can always go back to. Every time I hear it, I can hear something different in that. The Doors, and you may be controversial, I'll say LA Woman. And the reason being is because Riders on the Storm, being a keyboard player, which I'm sure you'll agree with, and because earlier when I was talking about other guitarists having a wealth of talent to draw from, Jimi Hendrix and such, Ray Manzarek was that person for me, really. As soon as I heard Riders on the Storm, I was like, oh my God, wow.
Great pick.
Yeah, no arguments here.
What else? Herbie Hancock, Headhunters. So that's another one of those things where as soon as you hear he's playing, it's just effortless. Anyway, it is. And it was funny, actually, when I first heard that album, a friend of mine had it on vinyl, and he brought it around to my house. And he played it too quick. It was like, we played it 45. And I think it was his dad's, and he was like, oh, check out my dad's record. But when you speed up, it sounds like a dance record. Because he knew I was into dance music. So he thought he'd come up with this great concept. But yeah, what an album. Incredible. Great player. Aphex Twin, Selected Ambient Works. 85 to 92. That's the first one. Which I say that with a wry smile because it says 85 to 92, but he would have probably been about 8 years old, wouldn't he then?
About to say, yeah, that's early for him. Yeah,
I'm not sure of his age, but you think, oh, okay. There's so many urban myths and legends about Aphex Twin, which is part of his charm, isn't it? Really great album though, because I do prefer his more ambient and melodic harmonic pieces.
Yeah, because he does have a lot of experimental stuff, and I've got a bit of it on vinyl, and I tend towards the ambient as well.
I mean, I appreciate all the dissonant stuff as well. Come to Daddy and things like that. They're great, but yeah, I probably wouldn't listen to it too much. Whereas that selected ambient work is something I'll go back to. What else? Kraftwerk, Man Machine. I mean, that's another controversial one, I suppose, to pick Man Machine, but because I guess it's the sort of most commercial one, isn't it, really? But just, hearing it at a young age, hearing the model and robots. Loved it. Great picks. I love it. A lot of variety there, and really good picks. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Talking about Ray Manzarek, by the way, going back to the Doors, is I had this moment with, because recently I had to learn the Echo and the Bunnymen track, and I could hear a lot of Ray Manzarek's playing sort of influences going on through that. And so that's why I was really enjoyed playing those tracks. And I remember one day I was learning, bearing in mind I had 3 days, but there's a track called Bugs and Ballyhoo. I'm not sure if you're aware of it. And I was listening to it and I was thinking, wow, somebody's really ripped off Ray Manzarek here playing this track. Just whoever played keyboards on that album. And I mean, but they've got it. I have to, salute them because they've got it down. They've got his playing down. They've got his sound. It's like the Fox Continental, and it's just his style. It's really everything going for it. And the next day in rehearsals, I said this to Will, the guitarist, who's the founding member, and he was like, "You realise that is Ray Manzarek? He played on the album."
Oh wow! Okay.
I was like, "No way! Wow! Okay, this is amazing."
And for our non-UK listeners, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Martin. So, Echo and the Bunnymen were huge in the UK, like really huge in the UK. Is it fair to say they're one of the new wave bands?
Yeah.
And I think they've had a decent following in the US. In Australia, not so well known, but it's hard to underestimate the level of influence it had and just how significant their back catalogue is. And even 4 or 5 years ago, Martin, I think they did the Transformed songs. I've forgotten the name of the album, where they basically, from what I could tell, re-recorded some of their greatest hits, and they're just amazing.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, in the UK, they've always been big, and in America, actually, they are pretty big because
there you go.
Killer Moon, for instance, has been using quite a few feature film soundtracks. So yeah, they've got a big following over there. I love that Ray Manzarek thing, though. I was chuffed to find out that.
Yeah, well, no wonder they got his style exactly right.
Yeah, it was a revelation, really, because growing up trying to sort of emulate him and taking a lot of inspiration from his playing, to then sort of be treading in his footsteps, really.
Absolutely, yeah, it's an amazing thing.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It's a wonderful thing. Yeah, and I think one of the nice things about when you think about some of the bands and the work you've done, Martin, is it's with seminal bands. There's bands that have meant a lot to a lot of people, and you're working with them and still bringing that enjoyment to people when you're playing live, which is, I think, an exciting thing.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm very fortunate to work with these people. Enjoying it. A lot of gratitude at the moment.
Yeah, well, it's a great thing, and another great thing is we're going to finish the podcast today with our quick fire 10. So, Martin, we've got 10 rapid fire questions, and we're looking for some rapid fire answers. And I'll let David ask you the first question.
All right, Martin, stereo or mono?
Stereo.
Sitting or standing?
Ooh, wow. Both.
Cool.
Can I say both? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Keytars, sexy or an abomination?
No, abomination.
Okay, I think I already know the answer to this one, but I'll run it past you. Transpose button or adjust on the fly?
just an obvious transpose button that's there without needing the use of a manual, really. But to be able to do both.
An X stand, keyboard stand, or anything else?
An X stand, an X stand.
Yeah.
Yeah, an X stand. Although they are really wobbly, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's like a bit of a design flaw.
Yeah,
design fault with them. But they collapse, or don't tell me that.
Well, they're supposed. Well, there's lots of videos you can watch of them collapsing. I've never had it happen to me, but it does happen.
Oh God, that'd be awful.
Last gig
they look cooler though.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, true. So last gig you attended as an audience member.
Ooh, that is asking a question there. You know what? It's been a long time.
I'm thinking Richard Clayderman. Is he still playing?
Oh, you were there as well. I don't know, because as an actual sort of paying person to sort of, wow. I don't know. That's a difficult one.
It's not an unusual answer either, Martin. It's surprising how many people say that. Yeah, because you're so busy yourself.
Well, this is it, and it's sort of on your day off. It's the last thing you want to do is go to a gig.
That's right. Yeah. So then let's talk about.
I'll tell you what. I did want to go and see the band Low the other week in Manchester Cathedral. That was when I intended to go, but I wasn't feeling too great, so I didn't end up going to that one. But I would have loved to have seen that.
Best thing about live gigs when you're playing?
Well, the audience. Just. They're essentially paying your wages, aren't they? And it's and without them, it would just be a sound check or a rehearsal. So, yeah, they make or break the gig, really. The energy that you feel from the crowd.
Worst thing about live gigs?
The audience.
Fair call.
No, I don't know. There's no real doubt. It was more about just being tired and the traveling and, not being able to get enough sleep and all these sort of things, really.
Name one thing you'd like to see invented, Martin, that'd make your life as a keyboard player easier.
An obvious transpose button. Or eradicate them completely, transpose buttons. So that option isn't available. Nobody can transpose anything.
All right, last one. Red keyboards, yes or no?
Yeah, I'd say yeah. Color's good. I mean, I'm pretty monochrome, as you can see.
No, that's great.
But yeah, for sure. Yellow keyboards, Wasp and things like that. They're awesome.
Yeah, they are. They're beautiful. Martin, can't thank you enough. That was a brilliant chat. Really appreciate it. And it's just amazing, as we've said a couple of times, the diversity of what you're involved with, your own solo work, and let alone everything else you're doing. And I'm assuming it's a busy year, rest of the year coming up for you. What have you got planned briefly over the next few months?
Well, just having a couple of days relaxing at the moment, and then packing to go on tour in France with Pete Hook. And so I'm busy with Pete Hook really for the rest of the year. I've got
that's great.
A French tour, festivals throughout the UK, a few European jaunts as well. Going to Australia, New Zealand,
cool.
Your neck of the woods in November. That is.
It might be time for a follow-up interview, Paul.
Yeah, that'd be good. We might interview you live. Where are you going?
Just the main cities, really. The main drag, Melbourne, a couple of nights there, Sydney, where else? Perth, Adelaide, Can't quite recall it on my head, but
Oh, that's covered most of them. And if you're going to Brisbane, you've covered pretty much all of
them.
Oh,
yeah, that's right. Brisbane as well. Thank you very much.
And sorry to our Darwin and Canberra listeners.
Tassie listeners as well.
Listeners.
Don't forget the Hobart.
Don't get to play in Canberra very often, but I think I've played it once.
It's a bit like playing in Washington DC, Martin. It doesn't tend to be a huge rock venue. Yeah. It's a capital, political capital. Love our Canberra listeners though.
Because where are you guys?
I played there recently, David. It's all right there. Don't knock the Canberrans. Right. They're good people.
That's right.
Are you based in Canberra then?
No, I'm based in Adelaide. So
okay, great.
Hopefully be able to see you come through. That'd be great.
Yeah, you'll have to come to the show.
No, but we'd love to. So, no, Martin, absolute pleasure. Again, onwards and upwards, and we will hopefully speak with you soon and have a great rest of the year.
Thank you. Yeah, you too. Thanks for having me, David and Paul.
Love that one, Paul. Lots of interesting insights, and Martin's a guy with a great sense of humour as well.
Yeah, I loved his dry, I should say, British. I was trying to say I loved his dry British sense of humour. He's a really nice guy. And, a lot of the guys we talk to, David, are just so giving with their thoughts and ideas. And Martin's obviously a busy touring professional, and it's just good to hear some stories and how he got into it and his philosophy on approaching it. It's great.
That's right. And also it's amazing after 51 episodes, we can still get people in the train wreck segment exceed previous train wrecks. So we've had a few transpose errors, but to actually have 3 songs of playing in the wrong key and being unaware of it, that takes the cake to date for transpose train wrecks. Love it.
Well, I love the perfect storm of your keyboard being out of tune and your monitor not working, so you don't know it's out of tune. I mean, that's delightful. That is delightful.
Exactly. So, that was great. And I just want to give a quick shout out to our gold and silver supporters. So, again, Greg at the Core Chrome user group on Facebook. Core Chrome users need to check that group out. It's absolutely brilliant. Brother Paul Brown from the Water Boys, who's also been a previous guest. So, Brother Paul rocks, and I know he's on tour at the moment with Mike Scott from the Water Boys doing a duo tour. And we've got a new silver supporter, Tammy Catcher of Tammy's Musical Stew. If you're a big fan of 80s music in particular and 90s and love seeing some really well put together and curated collections of music, check out, just Google Tammy's Musical Stew and that'll come up. And also, finally, the musicplayer.com forums. And actually, just as an extra one, Tammy is part of a great Facebook group called Keyboard Players in Cover Bands. And so Music Player, our listeners will be very familiar with. There's 2 great ways, if you're a keyboard player, of really mixing with a whole bunch of other keyboard players. If you like forums, and I know I do, I love the whole forum approach. I find it a little bit less spontaneous than Facebook, but more substantive. But also the Facebook group is brilliant. Just so there's 2 great ways to mix with other keyboard players. Can't recommend both of them highly enough. I think you'd agree, Paul.
Oh yeah, the keyboard playing hive mind out there is such a powerful resource to tap into, and the things I've learned from both of those resources, actually, the forum and the Facebook group, are incredible, and it's actually influenced gear purchases and certain decisions I've made. So it's it's a wonderful thing, and we're delighted that there's an affiliation with our humble little podcast.
That's right. No, absolutely. So yes, we'll be back again in a fortnight or so. But just a reminder, we do love to hear from you, and there's a few means by which you can do that. So our website is www.keyboardchronicles.com. On Facebook at facebook.com/Keyboard Chronicles, Twitter at the Keyboard CHR1, and then our good old-fashioned email address, which is editor@keyboardchronicles.com. I know we always mention it, but if you'd like to become an official supporter, we do have a Patreon account where for the price of a coffee a month, you can help us keep this little beast afloat. And again, thank you to a couple of some other people that have come on board with Patreon in the last month. We really do appreciate it. And it allows us to pay those podcast hosting fees and, Paul's jet fees and drug habits and all that sort of stuff. So it is really appreciated.
Doesn't pay for itself, David. Does not pay for itself.
That's right. And again, a huge thank you to you, Paul, for joining me. I know it's been a very busy few weeks for you, so always great to have you here.
Pleasure.
And most importantly, thanks to you all out there for listening or watching, and we hope to see you back here next episode.
dead.